So lately I've come across some comments regarding the frustrations that some players go through while playing in a group. The usual concerns are not that folks don't have good gear or that folks don't know how to play the game, it's that a lot of players are actually too aggressive when they're in a match-made encounter, and this kind of leads to what we call a res fest. So instead of an efficient format experience, people are busy resing other players who have been down because of their careless play. Now, I can understand that aggressive play can be helpful in some cases, but some missions are actually designed to make you play aggressively in order to entrap you and wipe out your group. So, the solution is kind of simple, and I'm going to give a few pointers on how to complete a group mission flawlessly or with as little as possible res festing going on. So, the first tip is to cover your flanks. As simple as this may be, this is the most simple thing that a group can do, and at the same time it's a simple thing to ignore, because when you cover your flanks, you'll definitely not only stay alive, but you keep your team alive longer. There's a lot of tactical playing necessary in the Division 2, and because this game pushes the envelope from simply an RPG looter shooter to more of a tactically inclined shooter game in the RPG genre, all enemy factions are designed to flank you and your teammates. So knowing that, there's no need for a team to funnel themselves into an area and make themselves easy fodder for these NPCs. Some of the things that a lot of agents have ignored is that the level designers of the Division 2 are extremely good at their jobs. They've created visual and architectural cues to lead you into the center of an area. Look at every room and building, and usually what you're going to find out is that the lighting and the structural cues entice you to proceed forward. Sometimes it might be a window entrance and you jump through it, or there might be darkness around you and a little light that creates a pathway. These things have purpose to actually bring you into the center of a place in order for NPCs to spawn on you and destroy you guys. They've done these on purpose for them to create a more engaging scenario and perhaps tempt you to leave those flanks open so that if you have very little patience, you're able to get vulnerable and then eventually lose a mission. And so this is one of those things that I would say a lot of people need to watch out for when you're playing in a group. One of the best things to do is just have two people on the right flank and on the left flank, and that way it's almost impossible for the NPCs to spread out too thin. But at that point, you know that flank is trying to get overrun, and that's exactly what they want to do. They want to break the flanks because it's in their AI programming. So also note that the hunter NPCs flank much more aggressively than any other of the groups in the game, and if you have more than one hunter fighting against you, don't rush, just locate where they are and move away from their flanks, because they usually flank in a circling action, one in front of you guys and one behind you guys. They also have all the skills and specializations that you have as well, so beware. They can literally one-shot you if you're not careful. The second tip is using defensive passive talents as best as you can. So what do I mean by defensive passive talents? These are talents that actually protect you without you actually doing much. All you have to do is just have the talent that's being rolled somewhere. So there's some really interesting talents that can easily change the game for you and your teammates, and the investment is very little. Two of these talents come to mind, and one of them has the funniest name ever. The talent is called Wascally, like Wascally Wabbit, and the next one is called Stop, Drop, and Roll. These are two of my favorites, and they always proc with ease. One of the methods used by most of the NPC factions is to hit you or your group members with a kind of exotic damage like bleed, poison, or burning to keep you under a status effect so that they can advance on you and take you out when you're in a frenzy. But a talent like Stop, Drop, and Roll will immediately remove these kinds of damage if you just perform a roll. It's actually that easy. So as you're avoiding the damage, whatever status effect you're under disappears at a whim. Pretty cool, right? Just roll it on your main weapon or your secondary weapon as well, and you're good. Also note that this does not do anything against shock, but there is another passive talent that can help transfer shock status on you to an enemy NPC within a certain range, but it's very situational, so I'm not necessarily going to recommend it, but you can also roll that on your sidearm if you want. In the case of Wascally, like Wascally Wabbit, this talent prevents up to 5 ensnare incidents. In case you didn't know, the foam that holds you in place that usually the True Sons usually run around with is called the ensnare. I think it also works in PvP, but I don't know if Wascally can save you, and I don't care to find out in that context. But note that this only happens only once every minute. In fact, when any of these NPCs run up to you with their spray foam, the talent just procs if it's holstered on your weapon, and it prevents you from being affected. So my recommendation is that you roll this on your sidearm, and it's things like this that will give your team an edge. The Division 2 is all about cunning plays and wise use of game mechanics, and this is what makes a good team run missions almost perfect. You see, when I run daily or weekly missions, I see my teammates getting stuck, and all I do is just shoot the foam because the thing doesn't even affect me in most cases. The next thing is crowd control. In most missions or in most scenarios, or let me say waves or spawns, you probably won't need to have any crowd control because the mission progresses at a very fast pace. But trust me, when you play those challenge missions, there'll be times where NPCs will try to gain the advantage by just putting a lot of pressure on you and your team. Or sometimes they may just press your team so hard and take everybody out and you're the only one left alive. So one of the best things to do at that time is to pull back, drop maybe an incineration turret at some entry, and slowly take out all the NPCs while your teammates spawn, or if it's in a no spawn area, you can carefully take down the NPCs from range and then start reviving down agents from time to time in order for you guys to complete the mission without having to wipe totally. You can also use a chem launcher fire starter or spray foam or seeker mines in order to push back rushing NPCs in order to give your teammates a very good combat advantage. Now, you can load up all this stuff and still make a mess out of a mission, but you have to learn how to make split-second decisions and how to apply these things in order to win every single time. Another tip is to use your specialization buffs for your teammates. You see, these buffs are some of the best things to happen to Tom Clancy's The Division 2. Please note that it may take a few minutes to actually do this and, go back and respec your specialization, but that extra 2 minutes is actually worth it. If perhaps you haven't upgraded your complete specialization tree, you can always go back and respec your specialization to unlock the group buffs. And in the case of certain group buffs, your team definitely gets a boost. For example, the sharpshooter grants a ton of reload speed and headshot damage for group members, and you can consider unlocking that for your group and getting an overall increase in DPS. Also, the demolitionist grants a bonus damage to targets out of cover, and this is very useful for group play as well. These kinds of buffs and much more help your team, and so consider looking for areas where you can actually run them on your weapons, areas when you can actually run them on your gear, in order for your team to stay ahead of any NPC type of ensnaring or flanking or whatever. Now finally, I want to speak about respawning and how it may be a wise choice to use the new addition in the game. You see, when you're downed and perhaps in a position where it'd be difficult for your teammates to pick you up, you can always just give up and respawn instead of just waiting. Because your teammates may be suppressed or trying to get through some pressure, it may be just wise to give up and immediately respawn in order to give them one less thing to worry about. And so these are some of the tactics that you can use to run missions flawlessly. Make sure you're spec'd for group play, make sure your specializations are buffing up your group, and pick a role and cover your flank. Sometimes it may be wise for you to change to a heavy gunner role, which is one of the roles I like to play, where I take a big LMG with a lot of bullets and I lay down a lot of suppression fire. This is something that will help your entire team. Sometimes it's nice to run some crowd control, not just taking only skills that benefit you, but looking around and seeing what skills will benefit your teammates. Anyways, these are just some tips that I have. It's a really short video from my perspective. And so if you have any other tips that will help group play run flawlessly, please leave them in the comment section. All of this is just here to help a lot of players who may be coming into the game or who may be trying to get used to the new mechanics for the Division 2. And so that's all I have. I just want to say thank you guys for your time, your audience, and your comments. And I guess I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.